it, hit it.
Finish the top of my hat. Now I want to make a pom-pom. Now I'm a big fan of pom-pom makers, and if I'm going to make a big floofy pom-pom that's like nice and round, I definitely use a pom-pom maker. But when I want a pom-pom that's a little bit wishy-washy and fluffy and just sort of not limp, maybe that's not the right word, but a little bit less round and structured, I like to make my pom-poms this way. It's a lot more rustic. I don't have any specific tools except a Tupperware lid. And then I, of course, like I mentioned earlier, some Aunt Lydia's classic cotton thread. So let me show you how I make these little tassels. Well, really big tassels, huh? I have a Tupperware lid here that is about 5.5 inches, which is great because that will give me a lot of extra length. What I'm going to do is I will take both strands of the yarn that I've been working with all along, and I'm going to wrap my Tupperware lid. And the reason I like to use a Tupperware lid is it generally holds its shape really well, and I have it lying around. I mean, how many Tupperware lids do you probably have lying around? I'm just wrapping my tail and my yarn itself all the way around the Tupperware lid. I'm not adding any extra tension or strength to the yarn itself because I don't want it super stretched, but I do want to have a nice amount of tassels. I want it really nice and full without being really super round like I would get if I was using a pom-pom maker. Now I know there are tassel makers out there that you could use, but again, I just wanted to make this as easy as possible for you guys out there who might not have all of the extra tools. I don't know how many wraps I'm doing here. I'm generally just doing it until I think it looks big enough, and I think that's pretty much how just about everybody does their tassel-y type of work, don't they? All right, let me see here. How does that feel? I think we could do even bigger. So I'm going to do it. Why not? Let's just do a nice big pom-pom tassel-y thing. That's a really great way to describe it, right? All right, so I'm going to say that's probably about good. So what I'll do now is I'm using, as I mentioned, some Aunt Lydia's classic cotton thread. And the reason I like to use cotton thread when I'm securing pom-poms, and this is across the board, is because it gives a really nice secure join. How many of you have done pom-poms or tassels and they've just fallen apart on you? If you use a cotton thread and you double it or quadruple it, you're less likely to have your pom-pom or your tassels fall apart. So I really do recommend getting some cotton thread. So I have a butterfly here that I just made up of some cotton thread, and I'm going to pull some length off of it. And what I want to do is I am going to double this up, and I want to make sure that I have maybe like 36 inches of length. And you'll see why here in just a minute, because we're going to use the extra length to secure the pom-pom tassel to our hat, okay? So let's get some nice length going on here. Perfect. I can go ahead and snip this. And I'm going to thread this directly onto my bent tip tapestry needle. And here's what I'm going to do, guys. I'm going underneath all of these little strands here. And I'm just tucking, see how I pull that through? And I'm going to pull that up. All right, so pull that up here. And I'm going to tie it, okay? So before I do anything else, I'm going to tie this. And the first one, I'm just going to tie just like so. See how you want it really nice and tight? And then tie it again. So pull that tight and then give a good pull the second time also. Okay, so that is just to hold those in place here at the start, okay? So now what I can do is place this as best as I can to the top, like to the center of all of that, okay? And using my scissors once again, I don't want to cut the cotton thread. I'm going to trim that. And then down here at the opposite end of where I tied, I'm going to cut my tassels, okay? So I can come up here and just start cutting them apart, okay? It's where a nice good pair of scissors comes in handy. Take it in little chunks if you need to in order to make it work. Remember, you doubled up on the chunky yarn, so it is really thick. Kind of gratifying, right? Just hearing the scissors snip and the cut. I like that. Sounds good to me. And snip. Right here I missed some. Snip. Okay, so I can remove my Tupperware lid. You can see I have all of these here. Okay, let me get that out of the way. Let me make sure I have everything sitting here for you. Okay. This is where I want to take my cotton thread and tighten it even more around what I've created. Okay, so you can see here, this is nice and long, really full, and we can shape this and make this shorter if we want, but it's always easier to go longer and then shape it to go shorter later, okay? Because you can always take off, but you can't add on. This is where I wrapped around once. I'm going to wrap around one more time with this knot, okay? And then I'm going to pull really tight. Okay, you ready? Now I'm going to turn this over, keeping that nice and tight. I'm coming up on this side now, and I'm doing the same thing. So I'm going around once, going around twice, making sure it's tight, and then giving this a good pull. See how nice and secure this is? Okay, at this point now I can create a couple more of those surgical knots. So I'm just going around once, going around twice, give it a good pull, and that's really secure. So if I wanted to, I could grab this and give it a good shake. Oh my gosh. All right, so that's a really big floofy pom-pom, and if I wanted to trim this up so they weren't so long, I could absolutely just put this over a trash can and just trim them up a little bit and make them less length if I wanted to. But I actually want to add a little, I like this. I'm going to see how this works. So here's the next step. You have this really great pom-pom now. You've created this awesome tassel-y pom-pom, but how do you attach it to your hat so it doesn't fall off? Now, I've been doing pom-poms for a long time, as long as I've been crocheting and knitting, and I often add them to my hats with a button. Not a button as if it goes through a buttonhole, but I often will put a button on the back side, and then when I use my cotton thread, I will put that through and tie it to the button. The reason I tie it to the button is because that makes it so that my pom-pom is removable. And then if I need to wash my hat, I can remove the pom-pom and I wash the hat and then reapply it. It's something that I started doing when I had kids because I'd always have to wash their hats and I didn't want the pom-pom to get ruined. So I've been doing it for a long time. I also have done pom-poms where I've secured the pom-pom bit on the inside of the hat really nice and securely as well, like sewn it in. But this is my go-to method, and I don't know why I've never done it in a video to show you. So here we go. Let me show you how to do this. All that it requires for you to have is a really good button. So I'm just using like a 1-inch size plastic button I got at Joann's. I have the hat that we completed, and I make sure I have the right side out. So the side where I did all of my seaming is on the inside. You can see I left a little bit of the strands there. And this is the right side. So I want my pom-pom to be attached right there, okay? So what I'm going to do, here we go. This is, I don't know why I've never taught this before. I take my cotton string that I used for my pom-pom, thread it into my tapestry needle because it's big enough to go through this button that I have right here, okay? So I'm not worried about it not fitting. I come up here to the top of the hat and working not directly into the center of the hat, but I want to go through some of the fabric. So I'm going to go into this side, come to the inside of the hat, thread that through my needle or my button. Can you see that's thread right through my button? And I'm just going to let that hang out there for a second. Now I come back over here, grab the other string of my cotton. This is why you needed a really long cotton thread. And making sure I go into the opposite side of my top of my hole over here. Can you see I'm going? So the first one I went right there. So this one I'm going to come over here to this side just to go through some fabric and give it something to hang on to. come to the inside, and then pick up my button, going into one of the opposite holes of the button, pull that string through. Okay, so here I am. I'm in the inside of the hat now. You ready? This button helps it stay nice and secure right there. I take my two cotton strands and I just tie them. So there is just a basic tie. I could add a knot if I didn't ever want to remove this, or if you've made your string long enough, all you need to do is make a nice button, or not a button, make a nice bow here. Okay, just a nice bow. And I like to double knot my bow. And then later on, when you want to take your pom-pom off to wash it, I'm going to just trim this up a little bit. You just undo the button here and it will come off. Okay, so that's how I do that. And so now it's really secure on there. I could grab this and look, it's not coming undone at all. Like, it's super secure. But there is a really fun pom-pom. Now, that is super long. I don't want it that long. So now that it's on there and I can see how long it is, I can go ahead and trim this up a little bit to make it a little bit shorter. And so I'm going to do that really quick, and then I'll show you the finished project. All right, so I went ahead and I trimmed up about 1.5 inches off of the tassels themselves, and I applied a name tag with my logo on it to give it that finishing touch. You can see here that you have a really nice ribbed look, but it was all done with crochet. Nice brim. The label there just adds a cool touch, and a nice floofy tassel-y bit there. So let's see how this looks. I finished my hair. How cute is this hat? Oh my gosh. I just love hats so much. They're so adorable. Make your own Snowboarder Chunky Hat. Either crochet or knit. Free pattern is available over at marleybird.com. Video description box has the link. Everything you need to know about knitting or crochet can be found right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Learn with Marley Bird. Visit youtube.com/Marley Bird.